Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome everyone. My name is Pamela Trivedi. I am a brown woman, middle-aged brown woman with straight dark black hair, shoulder length. I am wearing some silver earrings today and a cream colored shirt, and I am sitting in front of the computer in my house in DC, and I'm really excited to welcome you all to this webinar today. I am the Associate Director of our Georgetown University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. I work at the Thrive Center for Children, Families, and Communities at Georgetown. And just we're super excited about this webinar about the power of play and building connections and belonging with young kids who have intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. Um, so we are hosting this webinar in honor of Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, and my colleague Jalen is going to say more about that. But it's really a time to focus on inclusion and community participation, and today we're focusing on play. And we're not talking about play as a therapy technique. We're talking about play as something kids already do and as a space where connection, communication, and belonging can grow. So I'm super excited because today you all will get to hear directly from families about what play looks like, and how it's unfolding in their own homes for their kids and in community settings like school. And another reason I'm super excited is because of the people involved in this webinar today. I'm so pleased that Fari Gamina Tumpe, one of our trainees at the USAID, who were able to bring on as staff, is here today to and has brought us some wonderful families. I'm going to let Fari introduce those families. And we're also joined by wonderful colleagues from the Special Olympics, Cassandra and Rebecca. And another reason I'm so excited is because I got a chance to work with them. They were awesome team members that I got a chance to work with last fall when they were Innovation Hub Fellows at our Thrive Center. And we got to work together in thinking all the things we're going to talk about in the webinar today through. So our wonderful Special Olympics colleagues are going to talk about how their Young Athletes app can support joyful, inclusive play. And again, this is a conversation today about creating environments where kids can thrive in ways that make sense for them. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Jalen to talk a little bit more about Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month.
Hi, everyone. This is Jalen Marks. I am speaking off camera today as a way to access this webinar. So um, I and my picture displayed is I'm a white woman with auburn curly hair and glasses. I'm very happy to be a part of this webinar. I am the information dissemination coordinator for the USAID, and my role is to help share our messages and also lift up messages of our community members. And so this webinar is a way that we are celebrating Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. And Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, or DDAM, is celebrated every March. And it's a chance to highlight how people with developmental disabilities and their families contribute to strong, diverse communities. And we want to make sure that you check out other events that are happening across DC. I've posted a link in the chat. You can see we're part of a wonderful series celebrating DDAM.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jalen. And as people are still coming into the webinar, go ahead and put into the chat when do when do you see a child in your family or a child in your community or that you work with light up with joy? What does that look like when you see that? We'd love to know that as we start engaging with the wonderful families that that we're going to introduce you to in a moment. Fari, will you please introduce yourself and the wonderful families that we are going to engage with today?
Yes, thank you, Pamela. A jumbo buana, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Farik Amina Tumpe, the Family Partnerships Coordinator with GU Lend. I am also so honored to bring forth two amazing families that are just exemplary caregivers and powerful examples of what advocacy looks like for our children. We have Nadiej and Anthony Nolan, that are the proud parents of Knox Noland, and we have Chrysanthi Colinitos, who was the proud mom of Jennifer. So I'll be sharing both of those families with you. And are we ready to get started, Pamela?
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started. Please, Fari.
Absolutely. Well, I will start with the Nolans, and this is going to be joy and play focused. Anthony and Nadia, would you share with us um, what does it look like for play with Knox?
So Knox is a very auditory focused, or very auditory stimulated, visually stimulated kid. He likes to make music, make art, dance, prance, interact with his environment, jump off of high stairs, things along those
He's
lines.
very sensory seeking.
Yeah, so he's very sensory seeking. Um, yeah, so he does the full spectrum of those sorts of things.
Wow, that's sounds like my household with Daniel. Well, I would love to know what does it look like when you make that music together as a family?
So
Absolutely. I,
yeah,
I, I can chime in there. Typically, we try to get his level. So wherever he's playing, we try to enter his space, um, show interest in what he's showing interest in. So whether that's music, it's mimicking the lyrics, mimicking the sounds, anything like that.
yeah, and we also need to make sure that we kind of migrate into a space because Knox is also a very insular kid. So sometimes he wants to be engaged with, and other times he does not. Unfortunately, you don't necessarily know when that is. And to attempt to engage with him at the wrong time can kind of collapse the opportunity. So, we kind of sneak up on him, and kind of gauge how he wants to be interactive and if this is the time or not because again, we don't want to collapse the situation. So that has the most likelihood of there being very like nutritious interactions.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are carefully intentional in that way. So, what does it look like in Knox's own way in his play with his peers?
Yeah, so that's also very interesting. So again, Knox is a very insular kid. So he's not necessarily typically impacted by other children unless he wants to be. And he has an interesting methodology of kind of injecting himself into interactions with other children, other children's games and activities. But he also kind of removes himself when he when he likes to remove himself, and he doesn't necessarily conform to the structure of the game, but he'll conform to, say, the running or the jumping, the certain aspects of the game. One of the beautiful things about children his age is that they kind of very much allow him to do that. They're very flexible as well. They're very loving and accepting of Knox and the way in which he wants to insert himself or doesn't want to insert himself. And we're very happy for for him to be experiencing that with his peers.
And allowing our children to rightly divide what parts of play resonate with them is so important. Um, so I would like to hear a little bit about inclusion in public and in private spaces for Knox. Has that been something that organically happens or?
So I think firstly, it's important to note that Knox is nonverbal. So it's not that he does not speak at all, but he doesn't necessarily provide information, respond to questions, and things along those lines. So particularly with new people, he may seem very disconnected or aloof or whatever. And, if it requires us to introduce that he's nonverbal, that often addresses that initial assumption or that initial interaction people may have. Because again, Knox in just about every other way reads like a 4-year-old. So there needs to be, some balance and some introduction or some teaching there to assist with that. Fortunately, Knox, generally follows directions and things along those lines. So, if you tell him to come here or go there or do something, he might dance his way into doing it and dance when he's there or something along those lines. But he's very likely to participate. So he doesn't necessarily have the sort of pushback that comes with for lack of a better term, non-participatory type personality. So, we consider that fortunate, but we're also very aware of how other kids who demonstrate their personality differently are impacted by the wider world.
Thank you so much. And then in closing, what do you wish people knew about understanding the joyful play with children like Knox?
Yeah, I mean, I do what I can to make sure I remember, what it's like to be a kid. Don't tell anybody, but it wasn't that long ago. Uh, so I try to look at him through those lenses and remind myself of his age and of his disability and things along those lines. And when we interact, and to kind of keep myself in check as well. Because Knox is an entity within himself, and as such, he's not concerned about Anthony's view of what four is supposed to be. He's not concerned about Anthony's experience in life and things along those lines. So, I just need to kind of constantly remind myself of these situations so that I can continue to be a responsive a parent to Knox. And yeah.
I think patience is key. We have busy lives. We have the world is interesting right now, so it could be often you can lose patience. So just be able to ground yourself, remind yourself, enjoy this time with your child. They're not going to be a child forever. So just making sure that you have patience and you live in the moment and you enjoy the moment.
Thank you so much. I'm so thankful that you shared with us um, how joy can lead and how connection follows. So again,
Yeah.
thank you for being so transparent and sharing your lives with us.
Yeah. Is it okay if I ask a couple more questions, Fari?
Sure.
Oh, okay, this is Pamela again. This was really beautiful. I love Anthony, I love the way you said that Knox dances his way into doing things. He may do it in a different way. He may dance into doing it.
Yeah.
That's really I love that.
No
Um
straight lines.
yeah. I'm wondering, Anthony and Nadi, there was a really great example we talked about before, just that kind of really seemed to demonstrate the way that Knox does things, and the way that he kind of includes himself. So can you talk about the swimming example that you talked to us about before?
Sure. So we consider it important that Knox learns to swim for a variety of reasons. I don't swim that well, for example, and it was, so we've been including Knox in schools, swim instruction for what we do about 2, 3, a year and a half,
Yeah.
I guess, in total. But unfortunately, Knox is not particularly affected by the typical techniques that the teachers are using because he's not that concerned about what his peers are doing. He doesn't have the draw to imitate and to intimate, the people around him. So, he can be in the water and happily in the water, and he's just kind of there splashing and playing with a toy or something like that, and caring nothing about the swim instruction that may be going on. One of the things that we did to hopefully change that paradigm is that we've been taking swim instructions at Gallaudet University, which is a university for the deaf. And that instruction is more taught through, say, pantomime and other sort of like physical communication
Mm.
methodologies. So there's been some development, some interaction there that would not be typical for Knox, but he's still, very much doing his thing. When he's trying to, when he's supposed to be swimming. So, we're going to continue to put him in classes, but I also take him to the pool, well, in warmer months, particularly a couple times a week to just kind of get him, used to the drills and, to interact with somebody who he's more keyed into. So hopefully there'll be a carryover to his formal instruction in the future.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I really appreciate that. Just one last question for you all. What are your hopes and dreams for Knox as he grows up? Knox is, a young kiddo now, and what are your hopes and dreams for him?
I would say I just want him to live a fulfilling life, whatever form that is. Just make sure that whatever he does, he enjoys, um, and that it brings him joy.
Yeah, the political scientist, sociologist in me is very keyed into how our world's been going through some fairly dramatic shifts for
Yeah.
some time now, but definitely in most more immediately. So I'm getting more and more comfortable by with the understanding that we're not going to understand what his world is going to look like.
Yeah.
Uh, I constantly joke with my wife about what we're going to do when he shows up with his first Android girlfriend, and we don't know. We're not exactly sure how we're going to respond, to the half robot girlfriend. But we want to put Knox in the best possible position so that he's able to manage the symptoms of his autism, and he's able to be effective in the space that he occupies. And of course, hopefully, those two things will also lead to some sort of happiness, and hopefully, that would also mean he has a human girlfriend because he's human.
Awesome. So there was one question that came from the chat, and the question was, how do you educate others about engaging with Knox?
Question. I just break the ice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's apparent that our son is different. So I'm just always open, as soon as someone appears, I'm like, he's nonverbal. He may not necessarily have a conversation, or I'm just very upfront. And when I break the ice, I can see kind of the relief on the other end. It's like, oh, okay. And then other people, whether they're other parents or other children, kind of have a better understanding, and then they can um, adjust to work with Knox. So I'm just open to just breaking the ice, to be honest. I don't know if you have a different
No,
response.
no, I agree. The only difference, as I said before, is that Knox reads as a 4-year-old. He reads,
Yeah.
Mhm.
very typical, for lack of a better term,
Until you try to
until he
interact
doesn't.
with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So, parents can very well be having the sort of normal 4-year-old interactions that they would, would suspect to be typical
Mhm.
until they're not. Right. So, that's kind of the space we have to play in. Do we say, hi, this is Knox, he has autism? Or do we
Mhm.
just allow him to exist and
Mm.
interact
Mhm.
and inject ourselves on those occasions and in those situations where there's I don't know, uncertainty or things along those lines. So we have to play both of those roles because we don't want, quite frankly, Knox is best suited when everybody around him treats him as expected. I think that's the best situation for Knox. But of course, we want him to be safe. We don't want people to be, um, to be uncomfortable, for lack of a better term, or to feel away, for example, when he, or if he ignores them, and things along those lines. So it's a very active space that we're involved in here.
Yeah, about where to step in. There was one that thank you for sharing all that. There was one question from Laura in the chat, one more, and then we're almost ready to hear about Jennifer and Chrysantha's story. So the question from Laura is there anything that's been said to you all that was intended to be helpful, but unfortunately was hurtful? And Laura is saying that I always want to make sure I'm utilizing language and being respectful, utilizing correct language.
um, Hurtful. I mean, well, I'm going to say no for myself.
Yeah.
That might just be because of how I'm built as well. So I don't necessarily, take things in that sort of a way. But I think a lot of people have he will be okay, in the future sort of a disposition. And sometimes that's vocalized in a way that's, you have to wonder if, all right, is this the time for me to unleash the diatribe? Is this the time for me to get on my soapbox? Or do you accept it from where it's likely to have been, intended? And more often than not, especially if we're dealing with, people we don't necessarily have the sort of relationship that could that could overcome the soapbox. I stack soapboxes at times. If we don't have a relationship, then it's like, okay, I generally know where that's coming from. Carry on.
Amazing. So the kind of patience that Nadi was talking about, I see it in your approach there as well, Anthony. Really lovely approach. I think one thing that you all said that I also really appreciated, Nadi, when you were talking about patience and saying, just be in the moment with your child. They're not going to be little forever. Just really appreciate you both and all of your approaches. I'm going to let Fari wrap us up, and then we're super excited to hear from Chrysanth about Jennifer.
Yes, we are. Well, I tell you, Anthony, I stay on the soapbox. I take every teachable, I take advantage of every teachable moment, especially in the community, um, with the assumption that oftentimes people just aren't aware
Yeah.
of when they're offensive or when they're not helpful. And I make sure that they are aware of when they are not helpful and when they are offensive. Um, to me, that's a very important part of not only being self-aware, but helping others to understand um, how to be just and fair and appropriate, especially in public places. So again, we thank you so much. We are so looking forward to continuing the building community with you and meeting Knox and having play dates and doing all the things with Special Olympics. And also, now that we have talked about joy as rhythm with Knox, now we're going to spring into joy as exploration with Cece about her daughter, Jennifer.
Hello.
So, good morning, Cece. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Great.
Good, good.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
And we are so happy to have you. We spoke a great deal about that Jennifer has just turned 5 years old
Last
and how
Tuesday.
she
Yep.
loves the exploration of dancing and gymnastics and the trampoline and how she has this great daredevil spirit. So, why is introducing Jennifer to new experiences important to you as a family?
Um, I think since I came into being a parent in a somewhat unconventional way because I fostered, Jennifer since she was 6 months old. And when she came into my home, we were, my family, I wasn't even thinking about adoption at that point because you know how the foster care system is. But, as time sort of moved along, my family would make comments like, do you even know, this was before she could speak, but do you even know if she'll be verbal? Like, what is her functioning going to be? And and so on and so forth. And I think I um reacted to that by exposing her to as much as possible from very early on. So because she had heart surgery at 6 months old or so, she was part of this can do clinic at Children's. So we started going when she was 11 months old, and she wasn't diagnosed as being on the spectrum at that point, but I think a few of the neurodevelopment clinicians were, thinking it was a possibility given her genetic condition as well. But I think what motivates me to try to expose Jennifer to as much as possible is goes back to the fact that she gets so much energy from it and enjoys it. Like she has no fear. I mean, I have so much fear. She has no fear. I like yesterday I got a message from her teacher that said she bumped her head on the way to sliding, take it going down the slide. And then we checked on her and then she just went back to playing. Like that's how, she just has a very high pain tolerance. And so and I think as a mother, older, relatively older mother, it energizes me that I get to, experience life through her eyes at this point in my life when I'm about to turn, 44 in a few months. So,
Well, congratulations on that. And we know where Jennifer gets her resilience from. She gets it from you, but also want to understand how does play,
mhm.
exploration play supported Jennifer's communication?
So, it's been very, sorry, it's been very helpful in the sense, especially when she was, receiving some occupational therapy as well, but she's a very tactile person, similar to Knox. So whenever she can get her hands into like Play-Doh or kinetic sand, um, and other sort of, and she's very relatively, I think it's a little early on, but she's relatively athletic as well. So I think it's provided, especially in the school setting, it's provided a lot of structure that I think as when she was a baby, she didn't have as much of. But she's been she was started daycare at like 18 months when she was cleared from her heart surgery. So leading up to that, I think we always tried to you know, read to her or just like get her exposed to um, as many like hands-on toys. Like she loves blocks and tiles. She's very creative in that way. So I think it's really brought out like her creativity that I've always known from very early on that she has. But it also has provided some sort of structure as well, because I think she enjoys interacting with her classmates when we have play dates. Um, and I mean, Nadi and Anthony we've known each other a long time as well. So I think they would agree that Jennifer's definitely not a pushover and knows what she wants. And I think that comes a lot from, the interactions that she's had in a play setting.
So, what has Jennifer's school made possible? What provisions, accommodations, what has the school made possible to help with her communication and growth?
Well, so we have had outside speech therapy as well, but from very early on, she had an IEP from before she entered pre-K, and it was that she was going to be put in a general ed setting with some pull-out hours from like special ed services. But then within, I would say 5 to 6 weeks, they sort of realized that she may benefit from being transferred to a early learning support classroom. And in addition to, she was receiving speech therapy, so all the like services continued, but the setting, like the classroom setting, changed. And I think it allowed more one-on-one time, and the school, like we're really a partnership. I've lucked out in that way because of the size of the school. It's in an early learning center. So she's actually graduating in, a few months. But I think because there's only 60 kids in the school and there's like 6 classrooms total, that everyone knows everyone. And her personality and her social skills, I think, have really shined through. Like when she gets off of her bus, she says hello to everyone, like everyone. And if they don't say hello back, she just moves on to the next person. Um, and last week, as you said, it was her birthday. And I like had cupcakes and pizza and like the class. I think one of the real awesome things that the school has done is they've recognized that intellectually she's really like where she needs to be or should be from a like age perspective. So they've actually started to reintegrate her back into general ed. So on her birthday, like the general ed class came and they celebrated together, in the classroom. And I remember I went to the holiday event in December, and a classmate of hers that she had in her general ed classroom in pre-K went up to his mom, and I could hear him, but he's like 4 or 5, right? And he's like, Jennifer is very nice now, because he was one of the people that Jennifer would maybe scratch periodically. So, so I knew in that moment that progress had been made, when he went up to his mom and said, "Oh, I love when Jennifer comes to my classroom now."
Well, you've kind of gone into my final question. Well, maybe we can delve a little bit deeper. I was going to ask you, what does belonging look like for Jennifer? But let's expand it a little bit and talk about what does belonging look like for you and Jennifer now?
See, that's an interesting question. So I think especially when she was making the transition from daycare to pre-K, I was very apprehensive. And so decided to take advantage of the DC paid family leave, and that had led to like a layoff. and but I feel like looking back, as things are heating up, knock on every piece of wood on the job front, I feel like this time though has allowed me to really grow as a parent and not have as much. I still have anxiety, I think similar to Nadia and Anthony when it comes to social, like public settings. Like, for example, when we went to one of her besties' birthday parties this past weekend, I know that it was on a playground. And I know whenever we go to a playground, she just has so much energy that she could stay at this playground for 2 or 3 hours. And she always wants to be at the front of the line, and so on and so forth. So I always have to be cognizant and have like eyes, all over my head, because I know if she wants to be at the front of the line of something, and I'm trying to say, wait your turn. And the first, like the bait, like there's a 2-year-old in front of her, that she could really hurt that child if she went, full force. um, so I think from my perspective, I don't think Jennifer, and maybe I really, but I feel like she is so confident in herself. Like she doesn't recognize, I think, on some level, her differences. And if she does, I think she uses it as her superpower, as opposed to me, who's like still I mean, isn't as mindful of where we're at. But I think I also am just filled with gratitude that, she's overcome so many physical health things like heart surgery, and we're managing her genetic stuff and her kidney stuff. There's just a lot of, so for me, I feel like the sense of belonging comes from the fact that I feel blessed to be her mom and that she's still with us. Because, if she ended up in another home with with her birth family or something, I'm not saying there's anything, but the point is the likelihood that she would still be here is very unlikely. So I never take that for granted. So every time she wakes up in the morning, that's my gift, I guess.
Well, two things in closing. First of all, I would like to humbly apologize in not describing myself. I am a ripe 60-year-old two-gen caregiver with gray hair. I'm wearing a pink poncho and I'm sitting in a red room surrounded by my favorite books and gifts from my grandchildren. And also, as Chrysanthi alluded to earlier, she and the Knoxes, she and the Nolans, Knox's parents, have known each other for a very long time. However, to just allude to the importance of building community, and making sure that we are inserting ourselves into healthy play spaces for our children. I had no idea that Chrysanthi and the Knoxes knew each other, and our lives were interwoven through the interest of self-advocacy and creating care webs and fostering children that need love and care to be healthy and stable. So this circle of friends that has been newly formed but birthed many moons ago um, has been a divine gift for me to be able to research and explore ways that we can continue to raise children that will thrive, be successful in every way, and have a supportive village around them every step of the way. So again, thank you to both of oh, I'm sorry, Pamela, did you have any
I
final
mean,
questions for Cece?
it's very hard to follow you, Fari, like with these beautiful, eloquent words. Cece, I just wanted to say that I just really appreciate the just I love how you describe seeing Jennifer every morning as a gift, and how I just love the way Jennifer thinks of having being a superhero and having superpowers. I think in both of these stories, we've heard so many ways that parents are advocating all the time and translating all the time, as they accompany their child, as their child makes their way through the world. That it's complex. There are these complex interactions. There's complex services and supports that Jennifer needs and that Knox needs. But just kind of the patience and the beautiful way you are, you know, walking beside, sometimes having to get in front of, but walking beside your kids and letting just um Chrysanth exposing Jennifer to so many new things and being really motivated to do that. I also like feel really grateful for you all that you got this time with Jennifer that in the past little bit. It's another gift. I'm gonna transition to our amazing colleagues at on the Special Olympics team, because we really want to think through how the Young Athletes app can help families, build on that complexity of everyday play and help with the big job of helping other folks better understand wonderful kids like this. So go ahead, friends.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pamela. I am Rebecca Ralston. I am a white woman with brown curly hair. And I'm Senior Director of Early Childhood and Preventive Health at Special Olympics. And before I begin, I just have to really acknowledge Nadi and Anthony and Chrysanthi and just the powerful champions they are. I know Jennifer sees herself as a superhero, but I see them as superheroes, and just the ability to showcase the beautiful joy and amazing journeys that they're on, and to share that with everyone here. So we're so excited and so welcome to be here as part of this conversation. And really the power of play is something so near and dear to our hearts at Special Olympics. And as Pamela mentioned earlier, the ability for play to build connection, communication, and belonging. Play is joyful, it's inclusive, and it opens up those opportunities to find joy and beauty in our children. As you may know of Special Olympics, and we're gonna might take you on a different journey of the Special Olympics. We obviously are a sports organization that really brings out the power of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities through sports and competitions. But we're so much more than that. And in addition to sports, we focus on the health and developmental needs of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that starts from birth. And it starts from those first early childhood years where we know that our children need additional support. They need the ability to uh, thrive and grow and be able to be successful. As an organization, we're really here to grow with and support children and families, and really starting from that diagnosis or moment of first concern. Um, and what we really want to do today is talk a little bit about how we bring the power of play to families. We provide tools and resources that show to families how to play in inclusive and developmentally appropriate ways, ways that allow for fun and action to happen at home, as well as in schools and in communities. One of the things that we try and do through our play-based programming is take away the fear and isolation that some families may feel, and build off of that to create inclusive, connected, and shared spaces for families. And, we talked about this a little bit with Anthony and Nadi and Chrysanthi, but, acknowledging that not every moment is easy, not every moment is positive. We have these amazing and beautiful moments of joy, but there are also challenges. There are also opportunities where we can support our child in new and different ways. And one of the things that we really truly believe in is the power of connection and the power of support and bringing other families together. And by doing that, we can help the children thrive, we can help children grow, and ultimately be successful. And so I'm going to turn it over to Cassandra on my team, who's going to share about one tool that we have in our suite of programming that really brings the power into families' hands.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. I'm Cassandra Ryan. I am a white woman with shoulder-length straight hair, and I am the Early Childhood Project Manager on the team at Special Olympics. And as Rebecca mentioned, I'm here to share about one way that Special Olympics supports joyful, inclusive play for development through our Young Athletes app. So the Young Athletes app is a free mobile app for families and providers of young children under the age of 7. It is for all children with and without intellectual disabilities or developmental delays, but it is uniquely designed in a way to support children with IDD through activities, resources, and the opportunity to connect. I'd just like to flag in the beginning that it is available for download on the Google Play and Apple App Stores. It's available globally. We'll share the QR code in a little bit, and we can drop a link in the chat, but really wanted to highlight the ways that the Young Athletes app can be a tool for families to use at home on their own time to support them through their journey receiving a diagnosis for their child and or supporting their child's development through play. So to start, we like to show this video just to give everyone an idea of what it looks like. So as I'm diving in a little bit deeper into the app, you have some images in your head and can see what it's all about. So first we'll start playing this 1-minute video. Thank you so much. And that QR code will appear again, don't worry. But wanted to really take this opportunity to dive in a little bit deeper and share some of the key features of the app, how it works. So starting with sort of the three key umbrellas of features within the app, which are recommended activities, health information, and community connection. So the recommended activities, how the app works is that families log in, they create a profile for themselves, and then they create a profile for their child. And as part of that process, they complete what we call a development survey. These are a few questions about their child's development. They're based on the CDC milestones. We designed it not to be too tedious for families. We don't want there to be a roadblock in registering, but just a few questions to get an idea of where their child is developmentally so that the app can then make specific activity recommendations for their child. So on this screen on the left that you see, the activities up at the top are specifically recommended for that child based on the survey responses. And the activity recommendations are really designed to meet children where they are, as well as to support their development and progress. So every activity page, those next two screens on the slide, every activity has an illustration, suggested equipment, a written description, and a short video example of how to, sorry, do you mind going back one slide still? Thank you. A short video example of how to conduct the activity at home. So each activity in there includes all of those components, as well as the recommended activities. There's also the entire library that families are able to browse. So for instance, if similar to Knox and Jennifer, they're interested in music or they're interested in specific kind of activities, families are also able to browse and pull up activities that their child would be specifically interested in. The second sort of umbrella is health information. So we have information on specific diagnoses that children may receive. We have information on Special Olympics. We also have what we call our Healthy Start Toolkit, which is really a space designed to support families from the moment they might receive a diagnosis for their child. There's practical tools and research designed to support them in developing a medical plan of care, an educational plan of care directly within the app. Really, we know it can be really, there can be a lot of information and it's hard to sometimes to know where exactly to start. So our goal is ultimately to provide vetted information, reliable information to support families in supporting their child's development directly within the app in one space. And then finally, we have the community connection space. So this is an area where families can filter by location and chat with other families in their area or other families who might have shared experiences. From a data privacy perspective, families need to opt into this component in order to have their information visible in this area, but really hoping to facilitate that network of support that we know is so important for families and children throughout their journey. So you're able to create group chats and one-on-one communication in this space as well. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, I'll highlight a few more components to the app. Great, thank you. So just a few other things to sort of flag and call out. So we also have what we call our inclusive adaptations. This is to support children with additional accessibility needs. In the registration process, there's a question if a child needs additional support, if there's limited mobility or hard of hearing. Any activity that has suggested modifications in this space, they'll automatically be added onto that activity page. So all of that information is directly on that page within the app. We also have the app available in 7 languages. So it is available in English, Spanish, French, Russian, Chinese, Arabic, and German. That is easily updated directly within the profile. And then I wanted to highlight our monthly play report. So this is a play report or progress report. It's automatically updated in the app monthly to really just highlight how many activities the family has done throughout the month, really encouraging them to come back. Repetition builds skills, want to see continuous play, and then reminding families to come back in different developmental areas to continue to play with their child to build up those skills. And to really encourage retaking that development survey as well to ensure that the recommended activities continue to be relevant and are meeting children where they are. And then lastly, I wanted to flag the provider. So families have the ability to share their child's profile with a provider. So if the provider is also in the Young Athletes app, there is a provider login. They're able to register. When we say provider, we're speaking anyone who works with young children and families. So educators, pediatricians, community health workers, early interventionists, anyone who's in that space who would be connecting with children and families. Families can share their child's profile. The provider can see the recommended activities so that everyone has a shared understanding of what kind of play is going on and being and happening with the child. So really reinforcing that collaboration in terms of that plan of care for the child, and building that community in that space as well. So I think we can go to the next slide since it has the QR code. And I just really wanted to reinforce that the language throughout the app is all really positive. We're encouraging play, encouraging navigating and supporting child's development on their own time. We know that families are always in a different space within their own journey. And so really supporting them and revisiting it whenever they're ready or whenever they're looking for resources, connecting families and children into the Special Olympics movement and really bringing them into our network of support to provide support through positive and joyful play, as has been shared on this webinar today. So any questions about the app, I'm happy to answer. I think my email is on a slide coming up, or I can drop it in the chat as well, but we wanted to highlight this tool that we use to support children and families. So I will think I pass it back to Pamela, maybe.
Yeah, no, Cassandra, you had to talk so quick there. You got through everything.
Tried to
Thank
get it
you.
in.
Yeah, you got through everything. Thank you. This is I hope everyone can see sort of what a special tool this could be in the really complex work that complex and joyful work that families that families like Chrysanthi and Nadi and Anthony do every day. And how this can be a helpful partner. I'm especially excited about the connection piece of the app and being able to connect with families in the local area or just families that may have similar experiences. So this is really awesome, right? And it's fr it's totally free. We should have. Do you want to say some more about that, Cassandra? That
Oh, yes, just that it is free, will always be free. It is free for families and providers, yes.
Awesome. I just want to invite all, we're almost at the end of our time with you all. I just wanted to invite all the panelists, families, Fari, Rebecca, and Cassandra to just, if you have any closing words or shared reflections on, the power of play or what makes joyful play possible, in your family or in your work. And as folks are sharing that, I think we can we can advance the slides to get to the evaluation link in the closing. But any final words from families? Fari, you are unmuted. So any final words about that
Hmm.
question?
Well, I just want to, first of all, huge thank you and kudos to Rebecca and Cassandra for all the hard work you've done and put into this app. I want to encourage everyone here to take action and next steps and grabbing that flyer that they put into the chat to share with every early learning educator that you encounter, with every family of children with disabilities that you encounter. As a two-gen caregiver of both a daughter and three grandchildren that are differently abled, I cannot tell you how important the moments of joy and play and just a breakaway from all of the biases and challenges and pitfalls that we experience educationally, medically, mentally. This app brings so much joy and is something that is desperately needed for our children. Share this app to bring a holistic healing to our families and make sure that you indulge in it yourselves. I had fun with it. It's not just for families of children with special needs, it is for everyone.
Thanks, Fari. That's really well said. And I think, implicit in all of this is that joy is not extra. And it's for those of us that have kids with disabilities or mental health support needs, that's often where we see who a child is most clearly. And I think that that was so clear in the way that Chrysanthi and Nadia and Anthony described Jennifer and Knox. So I've this is the end here in case anyone there's still another minute or two, families of Chrysanthi or Nadia and Anthony, if you want to have a final word to share.
I think that play has the potential of being like a cheat code, for lack of a better term, because it is a method to interact with your child that may bridge the disability gap without anybody really noticing it. But an app like the ones that that has been presented also helps us track these things, keep not just the mental note that we currently have, but like a methodology to follow and to follow up with. And I find that very helpful as well because just organizing the play that we do and the activities we have and things along those lines is it could be difficult and it could also be repetitive and things along those lines. So I see the power in the app and I'm looking forward to using it for Knox.
I just want to ask if everyone, while we're giving closing remarks, to help us understand what you like, what you wish, what you wonder about the webinar, please click on the link Sophia has put into the chat and kindly fill out our webinar evaluation in real time before we exit tonight. Before we exit now. Please fill out the evaluation and I'll leave space for CC to give closing remarks.
I just wanted to say the timing of this group and the support is really spot on too, because, and Fari knows this, because we're both parent ambassadors as well, that, a lot of potential services that the kids are receiving through DC could be impacted by this, one big beautiful bill. So I feel like any types of additional services or play activities that our kids can partake in, that's sort of, you know, not as connected or contingent on federal funding is imperative to make sure that our kids continue to progress. So I really appreciate being given the opportunity to participate, especially with my, some of my besties, Nadia and Anthony. So
Thanks so much, Chrysanthi. We really appreciate the way that your families have stepped into advocacy and this this engagement is one part of it. I want to just thank you families again for giving us a little picture of your children in all their complexity, their distinct interests, their preferences, and their just ways of being in the world. You see that first, and then you help us all understand that. To these awesome colleagues from the Special Olympics, Cassandra and Rebecca, thanks so much for partnering with us on this and sharing information about the young athletes and how the young athletes and the Special Olympics can be a partner in shaping environments for all kids to thrive, and especially kids who have disabilities and formal kind of mental health support needs. So really just appreciate you all and thanks everyone for logging in and listening us today to us today. Here's our contact info, and we will follow up for all the people who are on today or who registered with a recording, with the flyer, with the PDF of the flyer that you could download, and with the slides that have lots more resources and information in them. Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and happy Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month.
Thank you all, and thanks, Pamela, for having us as part of this conversation.
Awesome, thanks.